Call the meeting to order of March 7th, 2023, to order occurring before both in person and via Zoom. City Clerk, please take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Here.
Councilmember Leanne, here, Councilmember Fan, Mayor Montano.
And here. Before we adjourn to closed session, City Attorney Motola-Pasi, please brief the public on the closed session items for today.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Today we have two items for closed session. Item A is conference with legal counsel related to anticipated litigation. There's significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.92. The facts and circumstances that give rise to this are a transactional occurrence related to fees charged for the use of sanitary sewer. The city is the defendant. The other item, item B, is conference with legal counsel related to existing litigation. This is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. The city is the plaintiff. The matter is the County Sanitation District 2-3 et al. Versus the City of San Jose et al. It's Santa Clara County Superior Court case number 18CV325480.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on the closed session items? Seeing none, we will adjourn to closed session. Welcome, everyone. It is now time to announce, City Attorney, will you announce the closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, there's nothing to report out of closed session.
Thank you very much. And now it is time for a pledge of allegiance. All rise. Okay, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, City Attorney, can you make that announcement on the Councilmember Fan's Zoom meeting?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Fan has reported that he is sick and believes he's contagious and would infect the rest of the council. As such, he's requested a remote appearance under AB 2449, the emergency circumstances provision. AB 2449 requires the remainder of the council to approve the remote appearance. So I would ask if Councilmember Fan has any statement he'd like to make regarding his condition, and then whether the council has any motions.
All right, any comments from the council? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next we will have the invocation from Councilmember Barbadillo. Oh, we need a motion. Oh, that's right. Okay, we need a motion for this. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, moved by Vice Mayor Chua, seconded by Councilmember Lin. And let's take the roll call vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Lian.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that authorizes Councilmember Fan's remote appearance.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And next we will have the invocation by Councilmember Barbadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. We acknowledge you as our Lord, and we thank you for the blessings of everyday life that you provide us. Please continue to watch over our families, over our city, and I pray for wisdom, compassion, and good thoughts for the whole council as we serve the city tonight. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Barbadillo. Okay, now moving on to presentations. This is part of our ceremonials. So I will go to the podium and make the proclamations. Good evening, everyone. So this is a very busy month. I'd like to first start off with the proclamation for the American Red Cross. And this is the American Red Cross is one of the largest humanitarian organizations in the world, delivering its mission every day to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Established more than 140 years ago as a humanitarian organization, the American Red Cross provides services to those in need regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or citizenship status. The city of Milpitas would like to show its support to all those who support the American Red Cross, helping all people affected by disaster across the country and worldwide by issuing a proclamation. Please join me, Mayor Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming the month of March as American Red Cross Month in the city of Milpitas. And here is the proclamation. And I put this on the side. And the next one is National Women's History Month Proclamation. Now this one here, American women represent a significant portion of the labor force and play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in the nation. Women's History Month is a time to honor and accomplish and visionary women, the accomplished and visionary women who helped build our country and pay tribute to the trailblazers who envision a future with endless possibilities for all of its women and girls. The city of Milpitas would like to show its support by issuing a proclamation. Please join me, I, Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming the month of March as Women's History Month in the city of Milpitas. And it's great to see a lot of women leaders here out in the audience. And here's the proclamation. And the next one is Youth Art Month. So this is for the proclamation for youth arts. And do we have Sophia Fojas from Santa Clara County? She will be on, actually she will, it was just noted here that she will be on Zoom. Is she?
I have her here.
Okay, great. Hi, Sophia.
Hello.
Hi. So the Santa Clara Office of Education has an initiative called Artspiration that educates, advocates, and celebrates arts education across the county. Artspiration is a countywide arts education initiative focused on professional development, student engagement, advocacy, and communication. Each March, art education is celebrated in local schools, school districts, and communities. The city of Milpitas would like to show its support of this initiative by issuing a proclamation. Please join me, I, Carmen Mayor Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming the month of March as Youth Arts Month in the city of Milpitas. And here, is there anyone here from the Arts Commission? So we do have a very vibrant Arts Commission in the city of Milpitas.
Mayor, I believe Sophia would like to make a comment.
Sophia, thank you very much. Sophia, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Montano and members of the Milpitas City Council for your support of arts education in our schools by presenting Youth Arts Month proclamation tonight. Yes, I am the arts coordinator in charge of Artspiration and have modeled the partnership with San Jose State around Marian Silker, with SV Creates, with the Arts Ed Connect grant. And we also are in the midst of collecting artwork for Youth Young Artist Showcase, which is the largest collection of youth arts in the county office of any in the state. Youth Arts Month began in 1961 to recognize arts as a critical part of the well-rounded child education. And it was a commitment for students, communities, organizations, business, governmental agencies, and individuals to share that commitment as a goal. Now in 2023, research shows us the power of arts in developing a path to creative self-expression, instilling a sense of belonging, and developing perseverance through adversity. We need what the arts bring now more than ever: joy, creativity, and connection. On behalf of the Santa Clara County Office of Education, I would like to thank you for recognizing March as Youth Arts Month in Santa Clara County.
Thank you very much, Sophia. You are so right. The arts do make a big difference. And it's that, we have it's called the creative intelligence that mostly all humans have, and the arts brings it out. Thank you so much for doing this. The next one, and I'm going to have the city clerk mail this proclamation to you. So if you can, I guess you have her address, so we can do that. The next one is the 25th Annual Women in Construction Week proclamation. So the National Association of Women in Construction celebrates the 25th Annual Women in Construction Week of March 5th through the 11th, 2023. The focus of Women in Construction Week is to highlight women as a visible component of the construction industry and provide an occasion for the association's thousands of members across the country to raise awareness of the opportunities available for women in the construction industry, and to emphasize the growing role of women in the industry. please join me, I, Carmen Montano, and the Milpitas City Council in proclaiming the week of March 5th through the 11th, 2023 as Women in Construction Week in the city of Milpitas. And remember, it's not just the men that do construction, but a lot of women do construction. And here is the proclamation. And we will send it to the Women in Construction industry, a person from there. And then we also have an organization called CEDA. And CEDA has a task force. And on this task force, and actually I would like to invite Vice Mayor because she is part of this group. If you would like to come down and present this as well. So would you like to do the honor of since you're the chairperson of that group?
Thank you, Mayor. CDAB is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women. And these are our representative. They've been working and meeting with our staff. Come on up, please. Dr. Swatisika, I always pronounce your name. Swatisika. Oh, you're here. Vicky's here. So anyway, these women, they're so passionate. They're so intelligent, knowledgeable, and they do their homework. And they're always prepared when they come to the meeting. And you're going to see a lot of, we're excited because we have a project plan and we're going to do it before April, right? So, Mayor, would like to present this.
Thank you. I moved to Milpitas not very long ago, and I'm very happy that I chose to make Milpitas my home. It's a vibrant community, and I think the administration is really very efficient, enthusiastic, and very compassionate. And I'm very thankful for giving me this opportunity to be part of this task force. And I'm really very passionate about working with women. I have been working in this field for women upliftment, and we are doing a survey, which I think it is already available. The webpage is available in the city's webpage. And I would request all women in whoever here and to encourage other people to take part in the survey. So we have a real-time idea of what we need to address. Thank you.
Takia Frame. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, the members of the City Council, and all the Milpitas residents. I represent Maitri, a domestic violence victim services organization that's based in Santa Clara County. And we work primarily with South Asians and also other groups. We provide culturally responsive crisis intervention, legal program, housing for domestic violence survivors. And CEDA has given us an opportunity to provide Milpitas residents with all the necessary information and any services you may need or somebody that may need going through domestic violence. So we're very happy that City of Milpitas has created this group and accommodated this really crucial service for its residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And of course, our youngest member, Vicky.
Hello, I'm Vicky. I'm from Milpitas High School. I'm the Milpitas High ASU president, and it's a really big honor being part of this task force. And a lot of people don't get the opportunity to be part of a city task force. So it's a great honor being able to work with all these amazing women. And I'm here to represent the youth voice, the teenage voice, the girl voice for our city. And it's just, I'm very excited to have this opportunity to share my voice and share my perspective and be a part of this task force. But yeah.
Thank you. I just want to mention that I'm telling you, she has some of the greatest ideas. You know how they say great ideas come from great minds? Well, there's one of them. Thank you. And I want to thank Ashwini also for City Manager Ashwini, Assistant City Manager Ashwini for being the facilitator for CEDA.
Assistant city manager is also part of the task.
Thank you. Okay, now let's move on to the public forum. Members of the public are invited to speak on any item that does not appear on today's agenda. Public forum will be limited to 2 minutes. And is there anyone here in the public that would like to speak? And then
Hi.
after that, the Zoom.
I have 3 cards, Mayor. The first is from Nidhi Segal. The second is Rob Means. And the third is Kelly Yip Chuan.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and all the council members. I'm Nidhi Sehgal, representing HSS, which is Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh. I reside here in Milpitas. And I would first want to thank City of Milpitas for having holy event conducted in our city, which was a great event. As HSS, we participated in that event, provided a lot of volunteers who gave in day and night to have that event being successful. We worked with the events coordinator to do the same. We prepared a lot of kids' activities and a lot of food stalls and everything that was needed for the event. We know the weather was not up to the mark. So the activities and games that was for the kids was, we were not able to conduct it, but overall how we could make the event successful, we tried our best. And also we got feedback from a lot of people that they enjoyed it with a lot of enthusiasm and the event was very fruitful. And we as part of HSS are also involved in a lot of activities which is related to the community well-being. The most recent one is what we call as Sun Salutations, which is yoga for humanity. We had 1 month of free yoga that was conducted in schools, in communities, temples, neighborhoods, all along, where we had set of asanas that we did, which was salutations to sun. And other than that, we have also been involved into a lot of other activities for the society and the community. We would want to, it would be great if we can work with the city to, have more and more opportunities and events so that we can have more good collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a few comments on that. I think Renee, our director, Renee Lawrenson, is the one that put this on and her staff. And they did an excellent job. And with your ideas, it could be better every year. It'll get better. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Rob Means, followed by Kelly Yip Chuan.
Good evening, Council. I think most of us have heard in the news that Fox, so-called news, actually lied. I mean, deliberately lied about the election results in 2020. And in my mind, that's like polluting the well of public conversation, discussion. Bad thing, very bad. And I'm not suggesting that we ban Fox News from Milpitas, but I certainly would see a way to charging them some kind of a fee to be in Milpitas. If they're going to be polluting the minds of our residents with lies, deliberate lies, it seems to me we ought to have some kind of a defense against that, or at least some kind of compensation from them. And that, in my mind, would look like, hey, let's make it expensive for them to bring their programming into our community. And I know that you folks will probably have an opportunity at some point in the future to review the cable contract. And that may be the opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. Why are we allowing these polluters to come in and dump their garbage in our community for free? Thank you.
Next.
Next is Kelly Yip Chuan.
May we have 3
Welcome.
minutes for our group?
Okay, so you can have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council and City staff. My name is Kelly Yip Chuan. I'm a resident and business owner in Milpitas for over 13 years. I'm here today to represent the Milpitas Chamber of Commerce as the interim president. With me today is Vice President John Agg and several board members. You might have heard that our chamber was going through some changes and challenges. I'm here to give you all an update. Last Thursday at our board meeting, we appointed 6 new board members to our team. They are Amanda Gomez, Casey McNeil, Jennifer Columbine, Juliet Gomez, Norma Morales, and Sonia Medina Ashby. When we sought out new members, we looked to include representation from a wide range of sectors, including tech, real estate, education, nonprofit, small business, and even the public sector. We are excited about this diverse team of leaders who have just joined us. We all believe and agree that the Chamber plays an important role in the advocacy and representation of business in Milpitas. In today's economy, it's more important than ever. The board believes that before we take on new projects and try to be everything to everyone, we have to get back to the basics and be an important resource to our members. So I'd like to share with you about some of the events, projects, and other items we have coming forward to better serve the business community. First and foremost, we would like to invite you to the craft feed scheduled for Friday, April 14th at the Milpitas Community Center from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Tickets will go on sale on Monday, but we are taking reservations now. We are excited to see you guys there. Our chamber is also planning a resume building interview workshop followed by a job fair this summer. We would like to partner with the City of Milpitas and Milpitas Unified School District to make this event a win-win for everyone. We also have our upcoming awards banquet in July to promote and bring our business community together. Firefighter of the Year and Police Officer of the Year will be acknowledged along with Nonprofit of the Year, Corporate Citizen of the Year, and Business Person of the Year. In addition, our chamber is looking to bringing the business breakfast meeting back. These are some of the events our board is working on. We will continue to do our networking events to help our members grow their businesses. Furthermore, we will continue to reach out to the business community on their needs and challenges and see how we can better serve them. This is just the start. We look forward to bringing more items to help the business community. I will be reaching out to each and every council member to schedule a time to discuss our plans for this. This is going to be a great year for the chamber and our members. We look forward to working together with you and bringing more businesses and economic opportunities to Milpitas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to say anything on any item not on the agenda? Oh, Mr. Montemayor, thank you.
The mayor, vice mayor, members of the city council, and Aswini and staff, assistant city manager and staff. New face. Anyway, the presentations, I will explain more the importance, the presentations and appreciations. Yeah, I always go with a blood drive when it comes to bulletin number one, American Red Cross, National Women's. Men's are challenged, but anyway, more power to the women's. Art. I am a Young Dreamers president before, and I'm also supporting the youth at St. John's. And we have the muscle also. They're just femininity, but they're masculine. And the CEDAW is a task force. Rob Mills was saying something. Yeah, the pollution. New group of the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, very nice here. And so we should all support. And I mentioned now, I'm not trying to say anything against anybody. For me, the word retention and the renovation of the new ones or new group, we should appreciate, let's say, the good works of the previous, or it's not previous, I would say. There's an appeal. And then welcome the new one, let's say, and we'll support both. The retention of good ones and the coming of the new ones. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk, is there anyone on Zoom?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you for that. Okay, now moving on to the announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. We have our City Attorney, Michael Mutalapasi, to speak on that.
Thank you, Mayor. I ask you, Mayor, and each of the council members, whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
None.
Vice Mayor Chua,
None.
Councilmember Lian,
None.
Councilmember Pham,
None.
Mayor Montano.
None.
Let the record reflect there are no reported conflicts. I also ask you, Mayor Montano, and the members of the Milpitas City Council to please disclose any campaign contribution of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from any applicant for a development project on tonight's agenda.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
None.
Vice Mayor Chua,
None.
Councilmember Lian,
None.
Councilmember Pham,
None.
Mayor Montano.
I am a none. Okay, thank you for that. So now I will read the code of conduct. Be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language do matter. Model civility, avoid surprises, praise publicly, and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices, specifically cell phones, on the council dais. Disclose conflict of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. Council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you for that. Now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to make any changes to the approval of the agenda? If not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent items.
Now, a motion by Councilmember Lian and seconded by,
I'm sorry, Mayor, this is approval of the agenda. Consent comes next.
Oops. Approve.
yeah, this is for
approve the agenda.
For the agenda. So, yeah, but we're supposed to vote for the agenda.
Yes,
Yes.
Councilmember Lian had said approve the consent
Yeah,
calendar.
yes.
I did.
And was it, so we don't need to do a vote then? Is what you're saying?
We just need the motion to say approve of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda.
And there was a second, it was motion by Helen, seconded by Councilmember Barbadillo. Is there a vote now?
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Pham,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Thank you very much. Now we are going to go to the consent calendar. So Is there anyone that is okay to prioritize the consent as agendized? Would you like, is there any changes on the consent? Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent? If not, I will ask for the public for comment on the consent. Councilmember Lynn, do you have your mic on?
No, I didn't. If I
Okay.
see nothing, I can
Okay,
move
so-
to approve the consent items.
Okay, so it was moved to approve the consent agenda, consent items. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so I think we don't need a vote for this, right? Yeah, we do. Okay, let's do a vote.
Did we want to call for public comment?
Is there any members of the public that want to comment on the consent agenda?
I just glanced on the topics and agendas. Agenda C's. Our faces say, all good, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that wants to make a comment on the consent agenda?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, so now we will call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lian,
Aye.
Councilmember Pham,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Okay, so the consent calendar has been approved, the items. And now we will do public on the items of public hearing. So item 15, conduct a public hearing on the 2023 weed abatement program and adopt a resolution to abate the weeds. And I will have, actually, I'm going to have Assistant City Manager to announce this item.
Thank you, Mayor Montano. So item 15, it's a public hearing, conduct a public hearing for the 2023 weed abatement program and adopt a resolution to abate the weeds. And the recommendation, would you like me to read the recommendation as well, Mayor? Would you like the recommendation as well? So conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution directing the County of Santa Clara Consumer and Environmental Protection Agency weed abatement program to abate the nuisance, keep an account of the cost, and embody such account in a report and assessment list to the City Council in accordance with the Milpitas Municipal Code.
Okay, so I will call on, actually, I'm going to have you do it because you're the Assistant City Manager.
Sure, and if we can have, we do have the presentation up and we're going to have a Fire Marshal, Arthur Belton, make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and members of the public in council chambers. Arthur Belton, Deputy Chief Fire Marshal for your Milpitas Fire Department. And I'm here to present on the weed abatement public hearing and adoption for the resolution to abate the weeds. Next slide, please. As we know, over the last fire seasons, wildfires and firestorms have become a significant threat in our state. Events are becoming larger and more widespread. Historically, these have normally been seen in where areas we call the wildland or WUI, wildland urban interface. As you can see on the above picture, that's the country fire that was hit the hills of Milpitas in 2018. But more significantly in recent years, we've seen firestorms that are actually affecting suburban, residential, well-developed neighborhoods that are outside of these WUI districts. Three contributing factors feed into this. That's the weather, topography, and fuels. Next slide, please. So for fire prevention measures, we can't obviously control the weather and the topography, but what we can control is the fuels and the fuel loading. So we focus on that. We work on defensible space around structures and around presence of residences, and we work on reducing those fuel loads. Most significant, these fuels are light, flashy fuels, dry grass, and stuff that ignites easily. It spreads rapidly. It will ladder into larger fuel sources, and it can spread embers and spot fires into distant areas. Next slide, please. So The fire prevention activities is to reduce this fuel load. On February 7th, the city council adopted the resolution to declare these weeds on identified properties to be a public nuisance that would need to be abated, and this was set for a public hearing for this evening, March 7th. The resolution was sent to the County of Santa Clara Consumer Environmental Protection Agency, the weed abatement program. The notice for the public hearing was sent via the city clerk's office to the local newspaper. Additionally, notices were mailed out to individual property owners from this office. Next slide, please. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide parcel owners a forum to state any objections they may have prior to abatement activities on the weeds, which will result in the placement of a lien on their property to cover the related costs of the actions. The weed abatement list and the associated resolution are included in the Cynthia Council agenda packet that you received for this evening. Next slide, please. Just to cover the jurisdictional oversight for this action is the city of Milpitas. We do have the authority, as we are the authority having jurisdiction to abate these overgrown vegetation and weeds within the city limits. The three exceptions are areas that are covered by the California Department of Transportation, most notably around on-ramps and off-ramps and freeways. The Santa Clara Valley Water District and Santa Fe roads and airports along some of the medians and strips along the border of between Milpitas and the city of San Jose. Next slide, please. So the process for this, the County of Santa Clara Consumer Environmental Protection Agency, the program will begin their compliance inspection process on the listed parcels. This will begin on April 1st. After the inspections are conducted, owners are notified and given 2 weeks to abate the hazard. If hazards are not addressed, the county contractor conducts the abatement. To give you an example from last year, 51 parcels were initially identified in 2022. Of this, 21 parcels passed. They were assessed a $91 inspection fee for that. The 30 that failed inspection, 23 of these parcels corrected prior to referral to the contractor. They were assessed $596. The 7 remaining were abated by the contractor, and they received an average charge of $4,020 for that abatement work. It is worth noting that 4 of these 7 are owned by Union Pacific, and they tend to have significant abatement. And so the average is among the 7, but that has definitely increased significantly because of those 4 lots that are owned and operated by Union Pacific. Next slide, please. Recommendation, as mentioned, open the public hearing and close following public comment, and adopt a resolution directing the County of Santa Clara and Consumer Environmental Protection Agency, the weed abatement program, to abate the nuisance, keep an account of cost, and embody such account in a report and assessment list to the City Council in accordance with the Milpitas Municipal Code. Next slide, please. That concludes the presentation. Here to answer the questions as well. I believe Mo Kumre from the County Weed Abatement Program should be on as well.
Thank you, Fire Marshal Belton. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item from the public? Mayor Montemayor.
This is one of my favorite topics. Yeah, most of the time I'm here when we have this topic about weed abatement. The weed, the simple meaning of weed is so simple sometimes, but when it comes to this presentation, it's a little bit different. Thank you, Mr. Arthur Belton, Deputy Fire Chief. Yeah, when it comes to the weather, the topography, and fuels, all those are in my line also. When it comes to fuel, there's material, there's combustible, there's ignition, and there's air. So if that happens destructively, then it's a big problem. Anyway, the obstruction is not only the three about weather, about topography and fuels. The obstruction means like if you have to inspect a property and they will have to pay or there's a fee, then that could be a problem without the help of the city. So thanks for the city subsidizing the fees, I believe so. And yeah, we were lucky in Milpitas. The fire hazards, I think the department is doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, is there anyone else? No, seeing none. Is there anyone on Zoom, City Clerk?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you so much for that. And we close the public hearing. I will close the public hearing now. And now, is there any council discussion? Any questions to Mr. Milton Kumre or our fire marshal? Okay, I don't see anyone want to make any comments. Okay, so is there a motion and a second?
Motion to adopt the resolution as recommended.
Thank you. This is moved by Councilmember Lin. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Vice Mayor. Now we will call for the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo. Vice Mayor Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Lian.
Aye.
Councilmember Pham.
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next, Assistant City Manager Ashwini, can you do item 16?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Montano. The next item 16, the recommendation is actually to continue to the regular meeting of April 4th, but I will read the title out for the public. So it's conduct a public hearing and introduce an ordinance amending Title 3, Business and Professions of the Milpitas Municipal Code to add Chapter 9, Permits for Retailers of Tobacco Products. And again, it's continued to April 4th.
Thank you very much for that. Moving on to item 17 on community services and sustainable infrastructure.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'll read out the title and recommendation. It's an update on the street sweeping pilot project expansion, CIP number 3455. And the recommendation for council to consider is receive a presentation on the options for expanding the pilot street sweeping program and support staff's recommendation to perform additional survey work and return to the mayor and city council to discuss next steps following completion of the surveys. And we will have Public Works Director Christian Durenzo and Deputy Director Elaine Marshall giving the presentation on this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. My name is Elaine Marshall. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director here at Milpitas, and I'm happy to be here tonight to provide an update on the street sweeping pilot program. Next slide, please. Tonight, I'll go over a little bit of background on the project, the pilot that was implemented, including the results of the pilot and the data analysis that was conducted. We'll go over the program expansion criteria and what steps staff have taken to evaluate potential areas in Milpitas for such an expansion. We'll also go over some high-level cost estimates for what an expanded program may cost and identify some additional resources that are needed to implement, and then also talk through some next steps. Next slide, please. So just as background, as Ashwini mentioned, the pilot street sweeping program is a CIP. It was approved by the City Council with the 1920 CIP budget. The objectives of the program were really to beautify Milpitas streets and neighborhoods by getting the street sweeper to better access the curb, meaning on street sweeping day, really getting the parked vehicles moved off the street so that the street sweeper could fully access the curb, complete an effective street sweeping and street cleaning during that time. This would reduce the amount of litter that's in and debris in streets and reduce that litter and debris from going into storm drains and out to local waterways, in addition to beautifying the neighborhoods. The pilot program was implemented beginning March 1st, 2021 through February 2022. Prior to March 1st, staff worked on implementation and design of the pilot program, including identifying the pilot areas in consultation with Milpitas Sanitation and our own public works street staff. We also worked closely with other departments, including police, who were our partner in parking enforcement, as well as engineering, who helped and provided advice on the placement of no parking signs. We also worked with our own staff as well as a contractor to fabricate and install no parking signs throughout the pilot neighborhoods. During the pilot implementation, before and after, staff provided multiple updates to the Energy and Environmental Sustainability Commission, to the Council's Transportation Subcommittee, as well as to the City Council. The most recent update was provided to the City Council on June 14th of 2022. Next slide, please. As a reminder, there is a regular street sweeping program throughout Milpitas. Street sweeping is conducted by Milpitas Sanitation as part of our solid waste franchise agreement. In commercial and industrial areas, which include main thoroughfares, street sweeping is conducted weekly, typically during after hours and early morning hours because of traffic and other business patterns in those areas. In residential neighborhoods, street sweeping is conducted twice a month. It is done on a first and third or a second and fourth weekly schedule. During that time, both sides of the streets are swept in a neighborhood on their scheduled street sweeping day. In residential areas, street sweeping generally occurs between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. So in the pilot area, in order to get vehicles to move during the street sweeping time, we also designed a more focused window for street sweeping. It was a 2-hour time frame. During that time, from 10 to noon is when the street sweeper sweeps the area. There are no parking signs that instruct the neighborhoods and the neighbors to not park their vehicles during that 2-hour window. In the pilot areas as well, the street sweeping is conducted on one side of the street on a given week so that those parked cars can move to the other side. And then during the second scheduled time, the street sweeping is swapped. And so the other side of the street is swept and cars are moved to the alternate side. In these areas for the pilot, parking citations are issued to vehicles who remain parked during the street sweeping window. This encourages those vehicles to move during the street sweeping window so that the street sweeper can fully access the curb. As you can see on the photos that were included on this slide, there is a before and after. The photo on the left is the debris and litter that's in one of the pilot areas during a street sweeping day before the pilot was implemented. And then you can see that on the right side in that photo, the streets are much cleaner, less parked vehicles, and the streets are swept and cleaner after the street sweeper comes through during the pilot timeframe. Next slide, please. So there were lots of data that was collected pre and during the pilot implementation so that we could assess and evaluate the effectiveness of the program. This slide is one that shows and focuses on parked vehicles. The red bar represents the baseline. This is before we implemented the pilot in the pilot areas. You can see there were more than 500 cars that remained parked on street sweeping day as our baseline. And then over time, the bars kind of moving towards the right of the slide show that the parked vehicles decreased over time. The signage, as well as the citations, it was successful at getting vehicles to move during street sweeping day, during the street sweeping window. The bars that are gray represent the time frame during which warnings were issued for parked vehicles and not actual citations. This was done because the pilot began implementation in the midst of COVID, and we recognized that there were still a lot of people working from home. And so we didn't want to burden residents with another hardship. And so warning notices were issued. We did get some movement of vehicles with just the warning notices. And then the colored bars show when parking citations were actually issued. That started in October of 2021. And you can see that parking citations had an even greater impact on moving vehicles off the streets during the street sweeping window. Next slide, please. And then we also had staff out in the field assessing the amount of visible litter and debris in the pilot areas during the implementation. This graph shows kind of the score of the pilot areas on average. The higher score means that there was more litter and debris observed on the streets. You can see the trend line through the pilot is that there was over time less litter and less debris observed in these pilot street sweeping areas. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. And so this information and the results and even more data was provided to the City Council during its June 14th meeting in 2022. And when we did report out on the effectiveness of the pilot, we did also recognize that expanding such a program citywide was cost prohibitive, and the council wanted to focus on key areas where there is a cost benefit to potential parking enforced street sweeping. And so as a result, council approved a set of criteria that would govern whether or not an area or neighborhood was added to the street parking prohibited street sweeping program. These criteria included that at least 40% of the street is blocked by parked vehicles during the regular street sweeping day, that areas are identified in the city's long-term trash load reduction plan, which is a plan that focuses on reducing litter in our community and reducing that litter from washing down storm drains and into local waterways. It identifies kind of high litter areas. And so we wanted areas that were included in that plan. The third criteria is that there is visible litter and debris on the street, and that is determined through a visual assessment conducted by staff. The next criteria is that there is resident and neighborhood support for a parking enforced street sweeping program, and where at least 50% of the single family homes in a neighborhood are interested and support such a program in their neighborhood. And then the last criteria for operational efficiency, we are looking at least one contiguous curb mile being required for any new neighborhoods that are added to the program. Next slide, please. So this is a great map that shows a lot of information, and I'll walk you through it. The green areas on this map identify areas where the pilot program was implemented. You can see there is a stretch of North Park, Victoria, as well as an area just east of Cardoza Park along Lynn Avenue. The third area is just north of just off of Dempsey Road, including the streets of Shirley, Selwyn, and Edsel. And then we had a long stretch of Yosemite. So those represent the 4 pilot areas. Those areas were again identified based on input from Milpitas Sanitation, who conducts the street sweeping for the city, as well as information from city staff and our long-term trash plan. So in June of 2022, the City Council directed staff to look at additional areas that program could be expanded into. And those are the areas that are shown in the other colors on this map, the yellow, the orange, and the red areas. Again, these areas were identified by Milpitas Sanitation and their street sweeper and supervisor, where they see issues accessing the curb during street sweeping day. They were also identified by our own public works street staff as areas where we know are impacted by litter and debris. And so in these areas, over the last few months, our staff in public works were out in the field conducting assessments, including counting the number of parked cars on the streets during street sweeping day, looking and assessing the amount of litter in the areas, and basically gathering data to see how these areas measure up against the council approved criteria. And so the color coding now on the map does go over the results of that analysis. The yellow areas are areas that meet the criteria. Specifically, there is more than 40% parked cars on the streets during street sweeping day in those areas. So that's a key criteria indicating that the street sweeper isn't able to be as effective as possible. The orange areas were the threshold areas that didn't quite, they had about a 30 to 39% parking impact. And then the red areas are areas that are less than 30% impacted by parked cars. And so in looking at this overall, the staff recommendation is to consider the yellow areas as the areas that met the council approved criteria, and that we move forward with conducting a survey to these areas to gauge neighborhood support and interest in having parking enforced street sweeping in their neighborhoods. That would be the last remaining criteria that we need to evaluate. Next slide, please. So again, the outstanding items, neighborhood support, we have not yet gauged neighborhood support. And so that's part of the recommendation tonight, is that we proceed with surveying those yellow neighborhoods to gauge the level of support. Some areas may or may not want the program. And so we really want to understand the desires of the neighborhood. The other outstanding item, which we will continue to work on, is ongoing parking enforcement in any expanded areas. Based on our coordination with the police department, we understand that the community service officers who were conducting the parking enforcement for the pilot are not able to take on additional parking enforcement duties. So we have done some research and looked at other communities. For example, Union City or San Mateo actually have contracted out for parking enforcement. And so we're continuing to explore that option. We would likely need to have a meet and confer on that issue as well, because that is outsourcing work that is done by city staff. So there's additional work and analysis and discussions in terms of really kind of honing in on what the right approach for ongoing parking enforcement could be here. Next slide, please. And so for a high level look at cost, and this is kind of worst case scenario, there's a mix of both one-time and ongoing costs associated with continuing and or expanding the parking enforced street sweeping program. There's a one-time cost we're estimating of up to $30,000 to conduct the expansion outreach. This includes the proposed surveys, both via door hangers and direct mail to the yellow areas, with a return postcard that we can then analyze and determine the amount of neighborhood support. If all the yellow areas supported the expansion, there would be a one-time cost of up to $116,000. This is for materials costs for fabricating the no parking signs and installing them throughout those yellow areas. This is probably the most pricey item. We do need to place these no parking signs at about a 200-foot interval in order to be sure that they're seen and enforceable. And then there are ongoing costs associated with continuing the pilot and expanding areas. This includes annual costs to Milpitas Sanitation to conduct the special street sweeping during the street sweeping timeframe and window. And then, as I mentioned, a potential cost for parking enforcement through a contracted service, as well as ongoing costs for staff administration and outreach. So we're looking at about $61,000 in annual costs as a rough estimate. The CIP that was approved by council has a remaining balance of about $554,000. So there is funding available in the CIP to fund the one-time costs as well as a large portion of the ongoing costs. Next slide, please. So for next steps, as I mentioned, staff is recommending that we move forward with the outreach and surveys to the yellow areas, the areas meeting the criteria for expansion. And we are looking at about a 4-month window to develop the surveys, translate the outreach and the surveys, update our website for the first 2 months. We plan on distributing the postcards and door hangers third month and conducting additional outreach, reaching out to neighborhood leaders in the potential expansion areas to increase awareness of the surveys, and then using the 4th month to analyze the responses. If we do see a greater than 50% resident support, we would return to council with next steps in the schedule to include identifying the location, to include implementation. And so staff would come back with a schedule for sign installation, implementation, and outreach, and notifying the areas in any expanded project areas. Next slide, please. And so the recommendation for tonight is for council to receive the update and support staff's recommendation to perform additional survey work and return to the mayor and city council to discuss next steps following completion of the surveys. That's it for the presentation tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you for that great presentation. Director Christian Dorenzo, did you have any comments to say?
No, I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to public comment. This is an item that we're asking the folks if they have any comments out in the audience. Would Mr. Montemayor come on down, or actually come on up?
Very good program. The regular ones, yeah, it seemed like there's difficulty really for the sweeper to get around the vehicles at the curb. So, but the pilot program, there could be a problem. There may be some crying when you got cited because of the parking violation, even though it's in front of your house, but it's a cleaning day, sweeping day. So anyway, the principle of the pilot is like, let's say the house, you cannot do the whole house in one day, or you cannot do the whole Milpitas or a big portion of Milpitas in one session. So if we just concentrate on few streets, but it's a big communication warning to everybody. You may need some knocking on the doors, park your car somewhere now. There's a designated areas. I don't know if you could do that. But the program of few streets, but focusing on that street, on those streets, then it's a good idea. It will be clean rather than nothing happens when. And I don't want to put negative on the fast moving cleanup machine or equipment. You cannot even let's say you just woke up. Oh, there he is. I'll run and park it somewhere. But anyway, that's just my example. You cannot run to your car and go somewhere, but everybody is not doing it. So it's still there. Those dirt debris will go to the drainage and it may cause flood. But luckily in Milpitas, not yet. So I hope you know what I mean. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Is there anyone on Zoom, City Clerk?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you so much for that. And now moving on to council discussion on this item. Is there anyone on the council that'd like to make any comments? Councilmember Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm very familiar with the street sweeping, because I came from San Francisco and used to get a couple of tickets too. So my question here is, how much is the citation? And now that we have to outsource because we don't have the CSO to write the tickets, and this is a third party that's coming in, do we split or how do you pay them?
A great question, Councilmember Lynn. I also grew up in San Francisco, so I remember seeing my neighbors waking up at 5:30 in the morning and running out to move their cars during street sweeping day.
Yes.
And so I'm very familiar with that. So in Milpitas, the parking citations are $65 per citation. Of that, there are some fees that go to the Santa Clara County courts and facilities. We also have a third party that does citation collection, revenue collection, and remittance back to the city. So of that $65, about $49.50 comes back to the city for, and it goes to the city's general fund. In terms of costs for parking enforcement, that's an item that we're still looking into, whether or not the contracted out model is workable. The estimates based on what we looked at and the cost that Union City and San Mateo are experiencing is about $55 an hour, which was what we used for our estimate in the agenda report. So we're looking at about $20,000 in parking enforcement costs a year for if all of the areas were to be expanded into. And again, that's just rough. I think once we get the survey results back and we know what areas we're talking about, we can get a better handle on what resources are needed for parking enforcement and whether or not we end up going the contracted out route, and if that's even possible.
Right. And here's another question for you, or maybe to Chief of Police. So in San Francisco, and this will work here because in areas that's very crowded, too many cars and very little parking spaces, and with this street cleaning, and we're blocking 2 hours out. If the truck or the sweeper cleans that part, can we go and park where it's cleaned, even though the 2 hours window is not expired? Am I clear?
Yes. I understand the question and the intent, right? To really minimize when the resident is inconvenienced and has to move their car. Unfortunately, I think, and Chief Hernandez can weigh in on this, I believe the window of time is ultimately what's used for enforcement because that's clear. It's hard for someone to dispute, oh, but the sweeper just went through. How do you,
Right.
how do you validate that and use that to fight the citation or to try to get out of the citation. So I would say kind of while the intent is good, I think enforceability, he needs to be more black and white. So it does have to be within that 2-hour posted window.
All right, Chief.
Good evening, Council. Jared Hernandez, serving as your police chief. I think this is a situation that police officers deal with on a regular basis, right? There's letter of the law, there's spirit of the law, and then there's also discretion that falls in there as well. So if you're going by letter of the law, then yes, you would be able to get a citation for any time you were parked on that street within that prohibited window. However, our officers use discretion on a daily basis. I would think that an officer that has seen that the street has already been swept, and if a car happens to park there, that they would take that into their judgment in issuing a citation. But technically, yes, if you're there within those periods of time, you could get a citation.
Yes, I pose that question just in case an area with very little parking spaces, with very few parking spaces, and people would say, well, the sweeper just went by, so I parked. Why did I get a ticket? Then this will communicate well out to the community so that they can avoid the citation with that window. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lynn. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Elaine, can you please put up the map?
Oh, yes.
The red,
IT.
yellow, and orange map. My favorite one. There you go. So when then Vice Mayor Carmen Montano introduced this street sweeping early on a few years ago, I was in my mind, I was thinking, oh, we're going to do the entire city. But the phase 1 pilot project taught us that we don't do the entire city. It's based on the criteria that we set up. Because some streets, they're clean. They don't need an extra street sweeping schedule. So that's a revelation to me. And I just want to point out that the yellow ones, the green ones are what we have now, and we're continuing to do the pilot project, the pilot program. And the yellow are the ones you're asking us tonight to do a survey and get the feedback from the residents if they want to have this special street sweeping program. And the red one, or the orange ones are borderline. It depends on those 4 criteria or 5 criteria that we have. And the red ones, we don't need to. Is that correct, Elaine?
Yes, Vice Mayor, that's the correct interpretation of the map and the results.
Yes, and to me, like you mentioned on your report, this is actually 9% of this entire, the yellow ones, right? It's 9% of the potential or recommended streets to be clean? Or is it 9% of the entire colored areas?
That's a great question, Vice Mayor. I believe it's 9%. So we looked at a total of 31 curb miles that were evaluated, and this is 7.8 of those curb miles. So not exactly sure where the 9% is, but it
Okay.
is, yeah.
Okay, that's okay. So I'm glad that this is moving forward, and we have money, we have funds to continue doing this, and I look forward to the survey, the analysis and evaluation of the survey that will happen after we hopefully approve this tonight. And lastly, I just want to thank the street sweeping team, Alan, Mayvan, and yourself, and anyone else who I missed. Thank you so much. This is really a great project. And thank you to Mayor Montano for introducing this to Milpitas. And I've been there on the site, and I know the staff, they're very helpful, and they phase it in. They don't arbitrarily give citations. There's a period where they warn the residents first before they actually implement the citation issuance of the citation. So again, I want to thank the Public Works team. You know, Christian is new, but this is really a wonderful program. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else like to make any comments? If not, I'll say a couple of comments. I'm really glad that the city staff has moved this project forward. I've heard so many great comments from the areas that have already been done, and people are glad because it's a multiple service project. It serves, it keeps our city's streets clean. It saves the bay from all that debris all that trash going into the bay. And the most important one is it forces people to move the cars that have been there for years. I mean, I've seen even some weeds growing around or under the cars from cars that have been parked there for so long. So people are very appreciative of this project. The other question I had is on the commercial streets. So when you come back, Elaine, will you give us an update on whether some of these commercial streets like Calaveras, East Calaveras, and well, actually all of Calaveras, well, no, actually not the state, but the city part, which is east of Park Victoria and Calaveras. I'm hoping that you'll give us an update if we can do those streets as well. And there were a few other ones. I think it was Able. But anyway, I'm asking Elaine if you'll be able to give us that update when you come back.
Mayor, thanks for that question. We will look at what's going on in those thoroughfare areas, and we'll provide information on what we can do to improve the effectiveness. It may not be adding them into this program because, as I said, those commercial areas are swept usually, late night into early morning because they're high traffic streets and don't have the cars there. So we'll see. I'll provide information on what we can do to improve the effectiveness of the street sweeping there, based on your direction. Yeah, your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, great. There's the specific area that I've received a lot of complaints, and I think other consumers have received complaints as well, is the Calaveras East on right after Park Victoria on that intersection. I think that's a lot of when we did our Beautify Milpitas, volunteers went out there. We picked up a lot of trash, and a lot of it is from just debris and even the streets. So the other question I had is, okay, so I'm really glad that the monies that the city gets from the fines is going into the general fund, and hopefully that some of that money can be used for this program as well to expand it. And thank you so much for staff for doing a great, awesome job. Thank you. Anyone else like to say anything? Vice Mayor? Anthony, oh, Councilmember Pan, I didn't see you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't have my hand raised. Just want to thank Elaine for the insightful presentation and all the great work you're doing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've done the discussion, so now we need the motions and then after that, the votes. So is there a motion and a second? Oh, move, Vice Mayor?
Move to expand the pilot street sweeping program and support staff's recommendation to perform additional survey and return to the mayor and the city council to discuss next steps following the completion of the surveys.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilmember Barbadillo has seconded. So it's moved by Vice Mayor and seconded by Councilmember Barbadillo. And now go to the vote.
Councilmember Barbadillo.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Lian.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And aye. Thank you. Thank you for all that great work you've done. Next, we'll move on to our announcements and future agenda items. Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kanti.
Thank you, Mayor Montano. I do have two announcements today. So the first one is about the Milpitas Community Theater's production of Shrek the Musical Junior, which opens this Thursday at the Milpitas Community Center. The show features 45 young performers ranging in age from 8 to 18. And the students have been working really hard for the past 2 months and are very excited to bring this beloved fairy tale to life on stage. The Shrek performs Thursday, March 9th through Sunday, March 12th. Tickets are available on eventbrite.com by clicking the Buy Tickets button on the city's website page as well, milpitas.gov/MCT. And then the second announcement is about our rent and mortgage relief program. So as you know, the City Council approved the use of $950,000 of American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds for a rent and mortgage relief program. This program is meant to help low and moderate income residents who need funding assistance to stay in their homes. The rent relief part of the program launched in December and is still accepting applications. The mortgage relief part launched yesterday, and residents may apply for up to $15,000 in assistance. They must meet the following requirements. They must have experienced an economic hardship due to the pandemic, which would have occurred after January 21st, 2020. They should currently own one residential property and must be a primary residence or homeowner. They shouldn't have received any other forms of government or private assistance for the same period requested and should be at or below the 150% area median income or AMI limit for Santa Clara County. And if you have additional questions about this program, please email housing@milpitas.gov or you can call the team at 408-586-3222. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Shwini. Is there anyone else that'd like to make any announcements? Okay, so I have a couple of announcements. So I've attended the Holy events and I want to thank Director Lawrenson and her team, her staff for putting on a really great Holy Day event. This is the Indian event that celebrates the commencing of the spring and to release energy out to the universe. So that's why they do all the beautiful colors with the powder colors. It was really great. I really want to thank staff for putting on a wonderful program. And also Ashwini was there and Councilmember Lian and also Vice Mayor was there. Thank you for that. And we also were invited to the Sewa Women's International Celebration. And that was another grand event commemorating Women's Month in the month of March. And just want to thank staff for all your hard work. We're in the month of March and I'm hoping that when spring comes in, because that's the beginning of spring is in March, that things will dry up and we could start doing more beautification events in Milpitas. Thank you so much. Is there no more comments? And I will adjourn the meeting. Good night, everyone.